Go ahead and begin our meeting today. We appreciate all of you being here with us today. It is 10 a.m. and today is Tuesday, the 7th day of April of 2015. And we want to first begin by excusing Commissioner Bell, who is not able to be with us today. But we will continue on with our invocation, which will be offered by Holland Wilbanks, and then our Pledge of Allegiance led by Devron Anderson. Thought of the day by Commissioner Gibson. Holland?
Please pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day, and thank you that we get to come together like this and watch county government and local government at work. Lord, I pray today, especially for our military men and women and those serving away from their families. I pray that you'll keep them out of harm's way. Lord, I pray today that you'll just guide the decisions that are made, help for our leaders to have your hand in the decisions that they make and the way that we move forward. Lord, thank you so much for beautiful Weber County, and thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Would everyone please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Before we move on, I just want to take a little point of personal privilege here and let you know I'm excited because my daughter, Cassidy, is here with me today. She's back here sitting next to Mr. Jones, and she's the one with the big smile. We love her. Today is her 18th birthday, and so she chose to spend her day with me. I'm not sure why, but I'm excited about it. I think it just had something to do with lunch, I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. But I'll take it, whatever it is. As you probably all know, the moments tend to pass a little too quickly when they get to a certain age, and I haven't seen a lot of her lately, so I'm really excited for her. She's getting ready to leave us and go to college, and she's going to some school way across the ocean, and I'm not too excited about that, but she's making us very proud. So Shelley says we should sing to her. Should we sing to her? All right, who wants to lead? Eric, will you give us a pitch? Come on up, sweetheart.
Eric doesn't have a pitch. He's just down low.
All right. We would make you give a speech, but we probably won't do that. Okay, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Cassidy. Happy birthday to you. Way to go, honey. Love ya. Okay, thought of the day today. This is one of my favorite times of year, and I don't know if it's just the farmer in me or what, but it's always been an amazing time for me, this springtime and Easter season. I've always wondered and been in amazement as I have watched crops grow and seeds be planted and then see them pop up out of the water or out of the ground with a little bit of water and a little bit of fertilizer and just become something special. And so my thought of the day is along with that and the Easter season. This was actually part of a presentation that I heard on TV on Sunday on the Spoken Word, which is a broadcast that is broadcast every Sunday. And so I'm quoting from Lloyd Newell, and he says this: "When hearts have been broken and dreams shattered, we need to be reminded that they can be mended and rebuilt over time. Just as surely brown grass, battered shrubs, and leafless trees can become green and blooming once again, we can believe in the promise of new life and renewed beginnings. In that spirit, a poet once observed, I wonder if the daffodil, and when her veins grow stiff and still. I wonder if the daffodil shrinks from the touch of frost, and when her veins grow stiff and still, she dreams that life is lost. Ah, if she does, how sweet a thing, her resurrection day in spring. This is the hope of the season. It is the assurance that nothing is ever permanently lost, that no one is forever gone. Indeed, heartbreak, discouragement, even death itself is not final as long as we have hope that resurrection day in spring. This is why we sing, hail the day that sees us rise from doubt to devotion, from fear to faith, from death to life. And I am grateful for this season that reminds us of all of the renewal of our lives and the renewal of all things that are good. I've grown to, one of the things I love about this community that we live in is that we have 4 distinct seasons, and we get to see the summertime that is so wonderful and all of its warmth, the fall that kind of leads into the winter. It's beautiful in its colors, and then of course the beautiful winter season that we have that is so unique to just our area. But I have to admit, my favorite is this time of year, this spring, that just helps me to feel rejuvenated and renewed, and makes me feel almost just a little bit young again. So I hope that you all enjoy this Easter season and this Easter time and this springtime that is so rejuvenating, at least to me, and I hope to all of you. Okay, we will move on then. We do have our public comment period at the beginning today. If there's any from the public who would like to comment, feel free to come up. Other than I will specifically mention, I know there's an item of interest to the Hansons, and I see them here. We will give you time during that discussion to comment if you would like. I think that would be the appropriate time for that. As well as was there one other item? Oh, the public hearing. Yes, if your comments are specific to the item in the public hearing, let's save those for the public hearing as well. So if there are any other public comments at this time, now would be the time to come up, state your name for the record, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Okay. All right. Seeing none, then we'll move to our presentation, and I'm going to turn the time over to Commissioner Ebert for the presentation. There's a little bit more than just a presentation that I want him to explain, that he's planning on explaining, but even the best laid plans go awry a little bit, right, Commissioner? And we had one of those experiences today with the recipient of our presentation, who has called in ill this morning. So Commissioner Ebert, take it from there.
We are just starting the month of April, and it is County Government Month. And so in conjunction with that, we've created a kind of a little program that we felt very strongly about. Government many times has many different functions. We do a lot of different things, but we felt it was important to salute and to recognize heroes within our communities that do outreach or service that affects the community as a whole. And so throughout this month in commission meeting, we will be recognizing heroes that have been nominated from other individuals within the community that have met this criteria. And the criteria is: a hero is anyone who has made a difference in your life or life of others, or positively impacted our community as a whole. And we received a lot of different nominations. It was, again, difficult to choose, but we went through them and we've picked, I believe, 4, a total of 4, and we will recognize them.
One for each week.
Yeah, one for each week throughout this month. One of the wonderful things about this job is the opportunity you have to take things that are very important to you as an individual and have some actual change within the county. One of my life passions has been public service. I've worked in public service for over 23 years. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the opportunity to help others and to provide a service to the community. As I was running, I had a lot of people ask me, what do county commission? And I answered it the very best I could, not being a county commissioner. But I would like to just kind of hit a couple different things that I've found over the last 3.5 weeks that county commissions and the county does. The county is required to ensure some type of physical health within the community. We do that mostly through our health department. The county is required to provide law enforcement and corrections, usually through the sheriff's office. We provide and maintain public lands and parks. We provide behavioral health to those individuals that are in need. We maintain transportation, roads, corridors, and all types of infrastructure. We provide economic development to the communities as a whole. We provide municipal service to unincorporated areas, and we provide library services. We also have a lot of outreach to other entities within the counties, such as the mosquito abatement, the paramedic program, provide a lot of input into the fair, the housing authority, Weber Basin Water, and the list can kind of go on and on. There's a lot of different things that the county as a whole does, along with all the other elected officials like the treasurer's office, the recorder, surveyor, etc., so on. And I think the biggest thing that I felt that we've really worked on is providing that actual customer service. And so what I've really enjoyed as we've started this county government month is to really focus in on public service. And that's why we started this program, to recognize those within our community that are heroes. And so moving forward, for the next 3 or 4 commission meetings, we're actually going to have different departments come in and kind of talk about the services they provide. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to all of those departments, but I know we have someone from emergency management here today that I may reach out to talk a little bit about what the county provides as far as emergency management, transportation, health services for a healthy lifestyle, so that we can better educate those within our community on what the county provides to them and the requirements through the public service that we will provide. Unfortunately, right now we'd launch into who our hero is, but he's ill today, so we will do that next week. We'll have 2 heroes next week, so stay tuned. Come next week to see 2 heroes. But that's what we're trying to do. We also have an outreach program that we've done for many years into the elementary schools on education of the 4th graders, which will continue, and other things within the community that will be in conjunction with local government.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and I applaud the efforts there. I think that's a common challenge that I have seen over my years in the commission, is that a lot of people, they might be able to take a guess at what you do in the state government. Local government's a little harder, and they don't understand, but they understand when their street doesn't get plowed, or when when their water doesn't come on or something like that. So it's one of those things that we have to do a better job of educating people as to what county services are. And one of the things that we do every year, and we will be continuing this year, is during this county government week and month, county government week specifically. When I say all, I mean all of the elected officials in the county, which includes I know Ricky always participates from Clerk Auditor's office. Mr. Bond generally helps us. So all the elected officials have the opportunity to do that. And that has been really interesting to visit with these young children and to see their ideas and hear their ideas and teach them a little bit. Sometimes it's interesting and the teachers do a great job, but sometimes the kids have to teach them a little bit about county government already. So it's good to see how smart those kids really are.
We may have a little art also displayed this year.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And we have a treat for you in the 3rd week, which will be a week after next. Be prepared to hear a speech from one of these young students that we heard just the other day. That was absolutely amazing. Did a wonderful job from over here at Quest Academy. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up that I think will show you how excited we are about the future of our young people. Another thing that we do is we take an opportunity as well, that'll probably be on that 3rd week as well, 3rd or 4th, to highlight some of the things that are going on through our State of the County address. And so we'll be doing that as well. So this is going to be an interesting week or month for us. We hope you'll stick with us and pay attention.
Stay tuned.
That's the words. Okay. We'll move on then past our presentation and get to our business today. We do have an awful lot on our agenda, so we'll move on through. Beginning with our consent items, item number 1 is a request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $880,060.99. Request for approval to ratify warrants number 319570 through 319893 in the amount of $1,487,336.78 dated March 30th of 2015. Request for approval of warrants number 319894 through 320042 in the amount of $934,378.75. Request for approval of minutes for the meeting held on March 24th of 2015. Request for approval of a retirement agreement by and between Weber County and Sandra G. Cook. Request from the Weber County Surveyor Recorder's Office for approval to surplus office equipment. Request for approval of contracts by and between Weber County and the following entities for Recreation, Arts, Museums, and Parks Award. Chamber Orchestra Ogden 2015-2016 season. The Downtown Ogden Inc. for the... Okay, I won't read them all because they've all been read in and posted once before, so we'll just assume the following from the agenda. Oh, now that I see that second page, I'm glad you saved me from that. It's ugly. Okay, so that is then the end of our consent items if we consider those all read. So motion then, or is there, Commissioner, is there anything you would like to see pulled off of the consent calendar or discussed separately? Ricky, did you have anything you wanted to add for us today?
I was just going to give a summary of the POs and the warrants that we spent for the purchase orders of the $880,000. That represents 62 POs. The largest one was for the gun range PO to have baffles constructed and to purchase target stands. That's roughly 42% of all POs, $373,000. $156,000 is going to purchase a paramedic unit, cab, chassis, and the mounting. And $181,000, or about 20%, is the roads department purchasing oil, gravel, and base for the upcoming construction. As far as the AP, the March 30th AP check run was $1.5 million, 324 checks. This was our monthly health premium, and so over half of that was just for health insurance premiums. We also paid $330,000 for our dispatch software. That's about 22% of the check run. That's to Spillman Software. And then the jail had about 20%, although the bulk of that was related to health premiums. For the April 7th check run, that was for $934,000, about 149 checks. And $270,000 of that, or 29%, was landfill equipment. That's our trommel screener that we purchased. $232,000, or 25% of the check run, was library construction. And then $153,000, or 16% of that check run, is for the walkway covering out at the Golden Spike Event Center.
The trommel screener couldn't come soon enough because we've had a whole line of people waiting for mulch, for
Yeah, yes, we have.
compost. So we're excited that this is the time of year when people want that compost, and so the trommel screener will help us get caught up with that. The other thing that I wanted to mention and point out that you did mention, Ricky, is the paramedic unit. Some of you may have heard that we have made the decision to add a paramedic unit in the county that will be, of course, funded through the paramedic fund that was set up in Weber County several years ago. That paramedic unit will be housed in the Weber Fire District Station number 61, which is the one out in Far West on 1900 West. It's been interesting to watch over the last several years. We've had a tremendous amount of growth in the north and northwest areas of the county, and our paramedic services have done a great job of getting to all of those people. But as that growth has continued in that north and northwest area, we have had more and more need for another paramedic unit. We have tried very hard to balance the paramedic need between the calls of service or the hot spots, the areas where there's an awful lot of calls for service, but also to be able to get to the more rural areas of the county when that is necessary. And so when you look at some of the areas like Warren and West Plain City, their response has generally, for a paramedic unit, has generally been from downtown Ogden, from 23rd Street, from the main station. And that's become a little bit of a challenge to some of those folks, because when you're in a life and death situation, that's a long ways to go, even if the paramedics get there as quick as they possibly can. So we are very excited to have a paramedic unit now located that is up and running, located at Station 61, which also can run north, and well, there's a whole area of service, but it'll run north as well as east, and also cover that west area where they can get there a little quicker in those kind of challenges. So we're excited now to work with the fire district. We have been contracting in the past with Ogden City to provide that paramedic service. They continue to be our valued partner in this endeavor, and nothing really changed with their service other than just a few minor contract adjustments. But as far as the number of units, they still run 3 units for us. Roy City runs a paramedic unit out of their station in Roy, out of their main station, and now we have another partner with the Weber Fire District who will run that northwest unit out of their station number 61. So we're excited about that additional coverage, and we think that is a good addition to our paramedic program. And we're grateful that there has been such good management of that program in the past that allows us to add that unit without any additional tax to our residents. So, all right, that's a lot of talk about our warrants, but anything else, Commissioner?
Well, before we approve them, I just wanted to say thank you to Ricky. I had approached him several weeks or maybe several months ago about maybe having a little more detail as far as what was presented to the public. And so he took it on his own to really create a system that allows us to see what the percentages are. When there's a percentage that's basically over 2 or 3%, it's marked, and then it's easier for us to locate it and read about it and dive down into it a little more, and then Ricky consented to then bring that information forward. So I just want to say thank you very much for taking care of that. It does prove a little more transparency within our system, so thank you, Ricky.
Thank you. Motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items as read.
All right, I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The consent items are adopted as read. So maybe our meeting isn't quite as long now that we've burned through page 1 and 2 with the consent items. That'll work. Okay, to our action items. Item number 1 is a request for approval to ratify a contract by and between Weber County and Stephanie Lindsay for the Spikers High School Rodeo held at the Golden Spike Event Center on April 3rd and 4th of 2015. Mr. Harvey, welcome. We're happy to see you here.
Very happy.
Nice to be here.
We're glad to see you up and at 'em.
Yeah, yep. Because of recent, wow, this mic's really hot. Let me stand for it. Because of recent events and commission meetings, how those have laid out, we're just bringing this contract to you now. This was one of the first big high school rodeo events of the year. I got to tell you, it's really refreshing to walk the halls of the Golden Spike and the riding arena and have so many people come up and just say, we love being here. This is like our favorite place of all the high school rodeos we go to all year round. And that was not just once, but it happened again and again and again. And I got to tell you, our guys out there and the folks who put this together in the office, they do such a wonderful job. And the reason I tell you that is that the team has just been great. Everything's nice and clean and ready for them and ready to go. And it was a great rodeo. The numbers are very, very good. We thought we'd have just about 150 stalls and maybe a little bleed over into Barn A, which is another 100 stalls. Well, we filled all of D, which was the 150. We filled the other 100, and we ended up going into 2 rows, which is about another 70 or so into barn B. That just kind of shows that it just grows exponentially with this high school group. And I think that also has to do with because of Weber County's support of the youth programs in the county with the kids rodeo starting at age 2. It's just it's a really successful program that started 21 years ago. And it's just perpetuated, and our teams are tough up here, and now when we see on a national scale that those who are winning are those who are from this area. So this is just, it got a little bit on a tangent there, but this contract is for the 3rd and 4th of April inside the Golden Spike and the riding arenas out there, and we're just looking to ratify this contract so we can make sure we're all good.
Well, I'll echo Mr. Harvey. I'm just continually amazed at the excellence of that facility. It's a great place, something that we all ought to be very proud of in our county, and we recognize the value to overall economic development. We know that a lot of people come here locally to see these events, but we also see an awful lot of people who come from far and wide to attend these events at our facility, and we're very, very proud of it. It's truly a one of a kind. So we appreciate this particular contract and this particular ratification. Commissioner Ebert, would you like to move with this one?
Yes, Fatima.
129.
129. I'll make a motion that we contract 129 by and between Weber County and Stephanie Lindsay for the Spikers High School Rodeo to be held at the Golden Spike Event Center, April 3rd and 4th, 2015.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Item number 2 is the request for approval to ratify a contract by and between Weber County and Weber State University for the Weber State Rodeo held on March 27th and 28th of 2015. Jim?
Same story. This is a continuation. There's been a lot of changes up at Weber State inside that rodeo club up there. So with your permission, those contracts that you're showing right there are photocopies. I'd like to bring these originals.
Okay.
And just have you, sorry, not on the mic.
See.
Make sure that we get the originals signed instead of the copies, and so their attorney took a little while. Their attorney took a little while to sign them. He had languages he wanted to change, like an E or an I somewhere. I don't understand how those attorneys do that stuff. But it's just another good rodeo out there. They're pretty self-sufficient, and we're just looking to ratify that one as well, if we could.
Attorneys.
Love them.
Sure glad they're here when we need them. All right. Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve contract 130 by and between Weber County and Weber State University for the Weber State Rodeo held on March 27th and 28th, 2015.
I'll second that motion. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We'll move to, thank you, Jim. Appreciate your effort being here. Jennifer, you're up next with our next agenda, and this one, I'm excited about this one because I actually had a phone call yesterday asking me how the project was coming along. So
Yes.
this is a request for approval of a notice of award to Bowen Construction for the water systems update at the Weber Memorial Park.
Yes, and this one has been a long time coming, but this is such a technical issue that we've had to do quite a bit of due diligence to make sure we've got the best solution possible. We did set this out to bid. As you remember, last year we had Aqua Engineering do the study to tell us what the best solution was. Went out to bid. We got 5 bids back, and after review from both our engineering office and Aqua Engineering, Bowen Construction was the low bid and satisfied all the requirements. And so we are looking for a approval of the notice to award for Bowen Construction and begin that construction as soon as the contracts are finalized. So
Sounds like the proper process has been followed, and sounds like a pretty good choice.
Fatima, does this have a number associated with it? So I'll make a motion that we approve the notice of award to Bowman Construction for the water system update at the Weber Memorial Park.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Discussion to the motion? questions for Jennifer? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate that, Jennifer. All right, Eric. Item number 5 is,
Am I
oh,
number
we have
4?
another one for Jennifer.
Sorry, you're
Better
stuck with me.
choice. Well, nice catch. Okay, request for approval of resolution of the Board of County Commissioners amending the Golden Spike Event Center Advisory Board bylaws. Sorry for cutting you off there, Jennifer.
That's okay, that's all right. These are just some minor changes that the board would like to suggest. We are just moving to make a couple of ex officio members voting members. And, part of the reasoning behind this is our board leadership is maybe trying down to whittle the size of the board down just a bit, mostly through attrition, but finding that finding board members that are very participatory and very committed, and finding fewer of them instead of more board members that maybe aren't necessarily able to commit to the level that is needed. Anyway, this is a part of this. One of the offices that we can always count to be there and help guide us is the Weber County Sheriff there, or his representative, and also the CVB. They always send a representative, and so we'd like to have those two very committed offices have a little bit stronger role in the board. And so these are from recommendation of the advisory board, and that's really the meat of the changes. There's, I think, one other typo that was being changed. So
We're giving the sheriff a vote.
I know.
Scary.
The sheriff is here. He's voted already.
I know. In an emergency out there, though, he'd be one of the first people we went to. So
So Jennifer, on here, under F, ex officio members, it lists 4 of them, and then it says non-voting, voting, non-voting, voting. Are we making all 4 now voting?
no, we are just making the CVB and the sheriff's
So
office.
number 2 and number 4, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So who stays as non-voting members?
Non-voting.
President, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. The non-voting would be the Ogden City Executive Representative and the Weber County Commissioner.
Okay. Has the Ogden City representative been active in coming?
No.
Get them excited again, huh?
I
At the
know.
fairgrounds. Okay, great. Any other questions for Jennifer on the resolution?
23.
Number 23?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 23, amending the Golden Spike Event Center Advisory Board bylaws.
I'll second that motion. Resolution number 23. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ebert,
Aye.
Chair Gibson,
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, now to Eric. Come on up, Eric. Item number 5 is a request for approval of a memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and the State of Utah Department of Natural Resources for a federal grant to retrofit the shooting range facility for public use. You're not going to be able to stand back there and pretend the mic's
If
too
I
hot.
stand up
Just
too close, I'll probably overbear.
Just push the
everything.
mic back a little bit. We got to get you on camera too.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm just here to present this. The MOU pertains, as you said, to the federal grant between Weber County and the Division of Natural Resources. The grant was a $400,000 grant that was applied to retrofit the range that was recently purchased by the county to allow public access. It is a match grant, and the county's match portion is $133,000, and we have met that match through construction that has been completed to date and 2 contracts that have been awarded that will be started hopefully today. The division's primary goal in participating in this MOU was to bolster their hunter safety education program, and that's part of their requirement to get the grant was to allow hunters ed to be taught out at the range and for them to take their field course and their shooting courses out there. And then in addition to that, to allow public access to one of the 50-yard ranges and to the 300-yard range.
So those hunters education courses have already begun out there, right?
They have. We
They're
started them about November of last year. So
Great. So this will specifically go mainly towards the retrieving system? Is that what your thoughts are?
It's a combination. We're using it towards the rifle range, the retrofit on the rifle range. We'll finish up the retrofit of the 50-yard range with part of this money, and then the bulk of it will go to the retrofit on the rifle range.
Great. So that's specifically for hunter safety as well, too?
It
or
is.
partly. Great. All right. We're excited about this project. It's starting to come together. It's not moving as quickly as we'd hope, but it's coming together right, and that's what we care about. So we're looking forward to having that open to the public. I'm hoping, Eric, that we can have a grand opening here one of these days. We won't.
We're trying. We're doing our construction meetings now between the two contractors that awarded the bulk of the contract to try to get timelines, because we are booked right now, and so we have to shut down ranges at certain times to accommodate that construction. So that's the juggling act that we'll be competing with right now.
Looking forward to that public use component coming through. So, thank
I
you.
as well.
Okay, well, we will we'll go ahead and act on this, Commissioner, unless you have other questions for Eric.
I think we answered all of them. Does the MOU require a contract?
131.
I'll make a motion that we approve contract 131, which is an approval of the memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and the State of Utah Department of Natural Resources for a federal grant to retrofit the shooting range facility for public use.
Okay, I'll second the motion to approve and adopt contract number 131 as read in the motion. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate that, Eric. Thanks for being here. All right, next is our discussion and or action on a presentation of a Weber County 2014 interim financial report. Scott, welcome up. And we have a couple of items on the agenda here regarding our finances, and we'll let you explain them. We'll move right from this section into the public hearing when you're done.
All right. As required by state law, we are presenting quarterly financial reports to the Commission. This quarterly report is as of December 31st, 2014, and it covers the entire calendar year. We do not have audited financial statements yet. We're still working with our auditors on those, and we do anticipate a few minor tweaks, but what I'm going to talk about is basically where we think the numbers are going to end up. So on the revenue side, all in all, we came in just about exactly as budgeted, but for different reasons. Our property tax revenue, we originally anticipated to grow at 2%. Then we revised it down to 1%, and the actual growth was flat during the year. So any new growth we had in property tax was actually offset by a decrease in collections of delinquent taxes, and so our property tax was flat from 2013 to 2014. We actually anticipate that going into 2015 as well, so we'd initially hoped for about a 1% growth in property tax. It doesn't look like we're going to get that if we want to be conservative in our estimates. Good news though, sales tax revenue is up a little bit. So we had anticipated 4%, came in around 5%, gave us an extra $130,000. And we did receive a federal grant of $1.5 million to help fund the purchase of the Swanson Tactical Center.
State grant.
State grant, yes. And that 1.5 in addition with the sales tax more than offset the shortfall in the property tax, and so we came in just right where we had anticipated.
Great.
On the expenditure side, departments came in about $2.5 million or 4% under budget. So we always like that. Of that, about $1.5 million was due to savings in salaries and wages, and another $1 million in operating expenditures. When you look at this financial report, it shows that we saved a little bit more. Part of that is just timing. We're going to talk about some capital projects that we had at the end of 14 that didn't quite get finished, and so are going to be pushed into 2015, and will require some budget adjustments for that. But unless you have any questions for me, that is the preliminary financial report for the 2014 calendar year, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner, any questions?
So at this point, we're pretty much on target with our approved budget. Is that what I'm kind of getting from this? We're pretty close to right on target?
For 2014, yes. So accountants are always a year behind. Yes, 2014 came in right where we thought it would.
And then you talked about the 1% or a little bit. Can you touch base on that one more time?
Okay, so our property tax revenue, we initially anticipated 2% growth for the 2014 calendar year. We revised that down to 1%. Actual results were flat. So we had a little bit of increase in property tax, but that was offset by a decrease in collections on delinquent taxes. So when you look at our 2013 tax collections and our 2014 tax collections, they're about the same.
Okay.
And we anticipate that going forward to 2015. I spoke with the assessor, and with the new growth numbers, we don't think we're going to obtain anything more than maybe 0.5%, maybe 1% growth.
Thank you.
All right, you're not needing action then on this, right?
No, just to accept the report is all.
Okay, great. So we do need action to accept the report.
I'll make a motion that we accept the presentation of the Weber County 2014 interim financial report from Mr. Scott Park.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks for that report, Scott. It's we spend an awful lot of time on the budget. As we talk about what Commissioner Ebert mentioned early in the meeting about what commissioners do, I think if you really get down to it, I'd say an awful lot of that time is spent worrying about and working on and managing the budget. And we're making an effort to talk about that more, what happens on the day-to-day basis with the budget. So you're going to hear a little more from Scott over the next several months and well in the future from here on out. So we hope that it's easier to understand as we talk about it more often and more frequently.
Well, and again, I don't know if you touched on this. I'm sorry if I missed it, but we used to do it yearly, and we've updated that to do it quarterly.
Correct.
So, yeah. So.
That gives us, again, just gives us more opportunity to talk about it and make sure it's available to the public, answer any questions that might be out there, and move forward in a prudent way. Are we having trouble with our feed? No? Okay. All right, so we'll move then to our public hearing. Commissioner, if you could give me a motion to adjourn the public meeting and convene the public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we convene our public hearing and adjourn our public hearing and convene a public hearing. Did I say that right?
Yes, we get the picture.
It's right here. I can just read it. It's just right there, but I missed it.
All right, and I'll second the motion. So the motion is to adjourn the public meeting, convene the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are in our public hearing. Item number 2 on the public hearing agenda is to request approval of a resolution of the Board of Commissioners approving amendments to the operating and capital budgets of Weber County for the 2015 calendar year. Scott, it's all you.
All right. So we had a couple of projects that we had hoped to do in 2014 that didn't quite get finished. One of which is a scanner out at the jail. That was about $200,000, and a few other projects. The trommel screener we had initially hoped to get in 2014 didn't come till 2015. And the way we budget essentially on a cash basis. So when we have expenditures in 2014 that don't happen in 2014, we need to make adjustments to the budget. So we are proposing approximately $331,000 in adjustments just to cover this timing difference, moving the money from 14 to 15. So it's not going to be any new expenditures of county funds, just reauthorizing old appropriations. We also, in our original 2015 budget, had failed to include approximately $400,000 of expenditures for restricted purposes. This is money the county already has, and it's restricted by state statute for use in specific areas, and we had just admitted including that in the budget in the first place. We also have made several other budget adjustments. I'll just go through a couple of the highlights. You have a detailed list in front of you. We have $800,000 in new revenue and expenditure for the health department because they received a new grant. We have about $440,000 of upgrades to county equipment for software, to county equipment and software. The survey recorder is going to receive an additional $166,000 to help them meet their staffing needs. $90,000 for economic development, $18,000 for the county treasurer to update credit card readers throughout the county. And we are also making some organizational changes. We are creating a division of internal audit and a purchasing division. And the budgets for these divisions will actually be pulled from other county budgets, so there's no new net expenditures for those divisions. So with that, unless you have any specific questions on any items, I'd ask that you approve the resolution.
Questions, Commissioner?
No, really no questions. There are a couple things that we've started to do, I think, differently, like the internal auditor, which I think was a needed asset to the county. And then we did take some different direction in our economic development, which I think will pay some dividends for the county moving forward. So these are much needed, and I appreciate the work that you put into this, Scott.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and compliment you, Commissioner, for your work with the Recorder Surveyor's Office. I know that has been a lot of work. Commissioner Ebert has been working diligently with the new elected Recorder Surveyor and has worked very hard to come up with a budget adjustment here that I think will make their office more successful in the future. So I appreciate that effort.
Very impressed by them. They've worked very diligently to put together a staffing model that will work. So
it's always interesting. There's always changes that need to be made, and in this particular office with a new leader, it's good to have that leader be able to kind of create a system that works. And there have been some changes, and we're looking forward to that. That's going to be a really positive thing. So I see a couple members of the office back in the back, and we just want to express our thanks to you as well. So congratulations. Okay, any other questions then for Scott on that item?
24.
24. I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 24, amending the operating and capital budget of the Weber County for the 2015 calendar year.
Okay. Yes. Good point.
Oh,
Yep,
public
that's
hearing.
just the
I
presentation.
apologize.
Okay. All right. Are there
Save
public
that for later.
Are there public comments to the budget adjustments? Anybody like to comment on any of those?
We're going to wait till someone comments.
No, we're not. You can come if you want. There's no pressure. All right. Doesn't look like there are any. All right. So then we need to, thanks for catching me. We need a motion to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the public meeting.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the public meeting.
Okay, and I'll second that motion. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're back in the public meeting. And now action on the public hearing. So that's the first item, action on the public hearing requesting approval of a resolution of the County Commissioners of Weber County approving amendments to the operating and capital budgets of Weber County for the 2015 calendar year. That is resolution number 24. Is that right? 24?
Yes.
Okay. Now for your motion, Commissioner.
Can I make that motion that you just stated?
Yes. I'll second the motion. Is there discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote on res.
Commissioner Ebert?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And to item number 2 in the action items. Item number 2 is a request for approval of a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Weber County authorizing eminent domain proceedings related to the Little Weber Cutoff Channel. And the presenter is Jared Anderson. There he is. I was looking to see if you were in the room, and there you are. So Jared, and I believe you'll have some assistance here from Lance Peterson, so we'll turn the time to you as you see fit.
Great. We're going to start out. I'm actually going to have Lance start out once he gets his presentation. What we'd like to do is just give you a quick, and for the record, to give a quick overview of the beginning, where the monies came from, why we got the monies, how they're used, and then close out at the end with the Little Weber Cutoff Channel. So we'll have Lance start as soon as he's ready.
Hello. I was just talking to the screen because I had a warning that said low sound warning. If you don't say something, it's going to blow up everything.
It shuts you right down.
Shut you right down. So
Okay.
I was saving you, Lance.
Well, it was there on the screen a minute ago. Oh, there we go. All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Jared Anderson asked me if I'd take a couple of minutes and review some of the history with the flooding on the Lower Weber there. So I'm just going to talk about some of the past flooding in 52 and 83 and then 2011, and then a little review on the, oh, your mouse is right there. I'm stealing her mouse, so, okay. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing there and some of the strategies we're trying to do along the river. I want to first show you some photos, aerial photos from 1952. I discovered these late in 2011 and just found them fascinating, and they really show what happened in 1952. And I'm gonna use Fatima's microphone if that's okay.
Great.
Well, let me see if this. Will it work over here? Yeah, it does. This is a collage of several aerial photos that were taken in 1952 during the flooding. And I'm going to zoom in if we can get things to work here correctly. I don't know what that says.
No, don't show it.
Oh, just minimize it? Okay. There we go. You'll see right here, and I think everybody can see it if I use the hand there on the mouse. That's 4700 West. And right up in here is the West Weber Cemetery. And all of these kind of dirty spots is where it was flooding. The river broke, if I remember correctly, about April 24th at about 7,000 CFS. A lot of people have said, oh, it broke at 10,000 CFS. No, it didn't. It broke on, the river gauge was showing on April 24th, right around 7,000 CFS. And you can see as it continues on south down here, 12th Street is further to the south of here. But you can see where all of this is all flooded and really severely flooded up here in the Marriott, Slaterville, Plain City area. But the one thing that's really an eye-opener, and you can see here the 4700 West a little better. There's the cemetery over here. And here's the Oxbow. This is Dan Eden's place. I think that's his name. And you come on down here, and you can see, and this is what I discovered and what me got so excited. I spent probably a couple of days putting this collage together because the separate photos, you just couldn't make heads or tails of them. But right here is in 1952 where the county and the farmers out there, landowners, were creating that Little Weber diversion. And if you look closely right here, you can see right here where the river broke, just on the south side of that channel. And I always wondered why on Glenn Waymont's property there was this big divot there. And when I saw that breach there, it finally dawned on me, well, of course, that's where it eroded away and created a big divot when it eroded away at that site. So you can see from this here that there's just a lot of flooding, a huge impact. It impacts agricultural down there. And is that the one that'll get me back to the pictures, guys? That one? Ah, thank you. I need glasses, I guess. So, all right. This is 1982 when it broke. You'll see right here. Well, yeah, I'll do it on the wall over here. This is 5900 West where the county had to breach the road. Right here, this grove of tops of trees right there is right approximately where Gary Nilsson lives and built his home. And here's the Warren Canal there where the county had to breach that, which one side of the hand you've got a flood, and then on the other side you were creating a drought for all the farmers down below because they can't get their water. These homes were impacted. This is the Hanson property right here, and a lot of flooding taking place there. You can even see the impact going back that Little Weber Channel back towards 12th Street, severe flooding back in that area, creating, in essence, a little island right here. And there's a little better picture of the breach there on 5900 West. And there's a little bit closer breach of the canal. Those are the only 4 pictures I've got of the 1982 flooding. In 2011, and let me state that in 2006, we almost lost the river again. It was another high year. If it hadn't been for Glenn Wayment and Larry Hansen calling me and telling me that the river was breaking, we would have lost it a little bit north of where the Little Weber Canal, the Little Weber diversion is located. 2011 flooding. This is Gary Nelson's home. Almost totally surrounded with water. A lot of sandbagging. Luckily, though, in '82 the county had installed 2 culverts, and later on in 2011 we installed 3 more culverts there to give us a throughput of about 1,000 CFS if the river were to break again there. This is just a slide here showing where in 2011 where the severe flooding was. We didn't have the severe flooding up in the Marriott-Slaterville area. It was all Dan Baugh's property pretty much and west. The cemetery is right in this area here, and there's 4700 West. And all of this property out here, Glenn Wayment, the Hanson property, Gibson's, and further south of 12th Street, we had McFarland, Heslop, DiGiorgio, Martini, and also on the north side we had a huge impact on the Wade dairy farm up there. So the flooding is real. It's a hazard that we face here in the county, and this is just an aerial showing where the Little Weber diversion channel is located, and the water wants to flow west. So it makes sense what the farmers and the county started doing in 1952 was create a way that when the water comes up, it's got a way to get out. I was told in 2011 that was probably the fastest people have ever been able to get back out onto their farmland and get farming again. So for the last 4 years, we've been working. We haven't been out picking pineapples. We've been working on the river, trying to mitigate the flood threat. And we received some grants from NRCS, and we've been working. We've been trying to implement our repair strategies that we came up with back in 2011, and I think they're sound. And one of which was the Willard Bay diversion. We spent about $1 million there. The situation with the Willard Bay diversion there at 1700 West and 1700 South and 12th West is that we can divert 1,000 CFS off of the Weber River towards Willard and pass it through during high water. The problem is there's so much debris that they have to shut that down 4 or 5 times a day to clean off the racks, the debris off the racks.
That's the old structure, right, Lance?
Yes, this is the old structure right there, and you can see them doing it manually. We installed there an automatic gate, an automatic trash rack that will catch the large trees and hopefully keep them away from the structure, and allows water to pass through to the rake, and it's automatic to where they don't have to shut down the Willard Bay diversion. What would happen is when they would, in order for them to get the debris off of this rack, they would have to shut the gates, which in essence surges us downstream 1,000 CFS, and then when they open it back up, they can divert it. But they're doing this 4 or 5 times. So reality, the net assistance below downstream was not that 1,000 CFS diversion that we really needed. So we've got that. It's a neat structure, and so far it's working good. They love it out there. Weber Basin operates it for us.
Before you move to the next topic, I think it's interesting to note that structure being there in and of itself will enhance the throughput in the Willard Canal at least a couple hundred CFS, because again, maybe more. Because of the fact that they can take that constant flow and have it continually cleaned.
Exactly.
If you were able to stuff 1,000 through there to begin with, But then you had to shut it down half the time to 0. You can imagine what that does to the overall average. So that's going to help a lot. But I think the other thing that I really wanted to point out is that Weber Basin, even though we don't have the money to do this all at once, is working towards the improvement of that channel all the way through. And it's happening in phases. And so they've done, I think, up through phase 3. They're working on phase 3 right now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they're about 700 north, maybe, with lining it with cement, which helps with the throughput. You bet.
Be water savings. It also helps with the throughput. So when that is done, which who knows exactly how long that'll take, we're hoping we can really get an additional. I don't know what the exact number is, but hopefully it'll make a big difference in what we can actually put through that channel in a crisis time.
It would sure be great. And any water we can divert to Willard keeps it from the lower Weber and less risk of flooding. So it's a great strategy that we use, and this will enhance that strategy and capability to not surge us downstream.
The interesting part about that as well is that canal is basically flat. It has to be lifted a couple of times from Willard Bay, but that's how water is actually extracted from Willard Bay and put back into the lower Weber River system during any time when water rights out of Willard Bay are being used. So that's just kind of an interesting, most people don't realize that that's a flat channel that'll handle that water. That's how they get the water back out of Willard and back into the Weber River. So this year, that's our biggest concern, is how to get water back the other direction.
Exactly. Okay. Debris removal and repair the riverbanks. We've had the road crews out there almost nonstop for the last 4 years, working at removing trees, debris, silt, and trying to repair the old 1933 levee wherever we can, do the best that we can. We've got some beautiful areas there that have great floodplain capability to them, which anytime you can get the water to come up and disperse out into a floodplain, it takes that energy and deflects it so that we don't have such a threat of flooding. And so many of those areas were really overgrown and a lot of downfall in them. And we've actually gone down into the river, cut out the trees that were growing in the riverbank that would impede the river. Buenaventura, we did a little project down there to help with the pond that's down there. It fills up with silt. It overflowed down there quite severely, and this will help give us a sediment basin down there to try to keep the water from silting up in the park. We spent a lot of time and effort out on north and middle runs, removing debris out there. I remember on Memorial Day weekend in 2011, I flew that area and the river was flowing east, not west. And we've spent a lot of time and effort out there cleaning that.
Where'd you get that dredger from? Is that all we could afford?
Yeah, probably. A good old guy, Butch Robinson, owns that. And he is probably one of the best.
I think that's from World War I.
Isn't
that the Star from World War I or II?
It's a World War II probably surplus. Yeah, he buys a lot of surplus.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he can throw that bucket out there 100 yards. He's a good drag line operator. Another part of this was to try to fix the banks that had been damaged in the high water runoff and try to stabilize the river where it's at. You know, a lot of people, farmers out there have said, well, golly, I've lost 30 feet over here the last 50, 60 years, and I can't help you. The river's where it's at right now. Let's stabilize it where it's at right now and try to protect it. And we've tried to protect some of the homes. I think that's Sean Rasmussen's home there in the distance, I believe, on this particular project. This is on the Junior Martini property, helping protect his pumping system right there. And this whole road was sloughing off, and he was going to lose his ditch right there on the left-hand side. This is, I think, over on Tommy Favero's, just off 4700 West. Eden lives back in here, and the river was headed right for his house eventually. And this is, I think, on some more Junior Martini property right by Rex Hancock's on the south side of the 12th Street. This here is a large one right off of Riverside Subdivision, 3650 West in Marriott Slaterville, protecting those homes. And this one here is protecting I-84, just up in Uinta, just a couple miles down from the mouth of the canyon. So we've done a lot of riprap projects and bank stabilization projects. The Little Weber diversion is the last one I'll talk about here. Well, I think I got one more to talk about, but this is where in 1952 the county dug an 80-foot wide channel, 80 feet wide, and it hadn't been maintained. It was full of tules and weeds and garbage. It had kind of become a garbage dump out there. And we cleaned it out and realized if we cement it, we can get it down to 30 feet and lessen the footprint on the farmers' properties out there. And it has included making sure that downstream on the Little Weber that we have large culverts to increase the capacity to 1,000 CFS. You can see right there with my pointer that there's the channel, there's the river. Here is the canal that we always had to breach in 52 and 83. And then following the stream down, we've enlarged the culverts down there. We enlarged it, we cleaned it out, and now we've started to put in a control system, which is completed. It's some large gates that we can have the ability to open and close those whenever we get into high water. And the intent is to keep the water from getting high enough to where it subs out onto the farmers' grounds, enabling them to get out onto their ground in the spring and farm. Once that water comes up onto the old 1933 levee, it subs out there and they're unable to farm it. So hopefully, in a perfect world, we'll be able to open these up to keep the flow low enough on the river to minimize the impact on those. So we've done some major things. The debris removal, the bank protection, the levee, we've beefed it up wherever we could. The Ogden Bay gates, and I thought I had those pictures, maybe I didn't. Out on the west bottom end of the river. And people can say, well, we haven't had a large earthquake on the Wasatch Front for 350 years, so let's not worry about it. And that kind of logic is wrong. Just because it hasn't happened in 350 years doesn't mean it's going to happen again. In fact, on average, it happens once every 350 years. In 1950s, the farmers and folks down on the lower river said, it's not gonna flood again. We've got the dams, that'll protect us. And the evidence has shown clearly that kind of logic is wrong. And if we are going to, as a county, I'm a pretty stout Republican. I've voted for maybe 2 Democrats in my life. Jan Graham, because I thought she was pretty, and Bob Hunter, because he was a friend. But I'm not for big government. I'm not for government stepping in and doing things that is not wise and prudent. But in 1950s, the farmer said it's not gonna flood again, and we saw in 1983 it flooded quite severely. We saw it almost flood in 2006, and had it not been for some 2 farmers out there catching it, we would have flooded. And in 2011, again, it flooded. So the logic is wrong. It will flood. And I think it's our job as government here in the county to do what's wise and prudent to sustain the economic viability of the Western Weber County. Whether that economic viability is in farming or residential or commercial, that's for the generations after us. But I think it would be wrong for us to sit back and say, it won't flood again, because it has and it will. The threat is there. And I think that the projects we've outlined here that Jared's going to review with you is a wise and prudent thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Appreciate that.
if you ever need a presentation done with little notice, give Lance a call. He does a good job, and I appreciate the time and effort he took into this. You know, I've been here just over 3 years, and I was hired. My first day here was January 23rd, 2012, and I got an email from Lance on January 24th, 2012. So I appreciate him giving me 1 day to get my feet wet before I was introduced to this project. But it has been a project that's been really what it's been our main focus this past 3 years is this EWP project and getting through it. So what I'd like to do, my presentation isn't going to be near as pretty or entertaining as Lance's, but I definitely want to go through some of the dates and some of the things that we needed to do to do this process and get it done right. Initially we had, these funds were given to us through NRCS. I'm going to murder it, but you probably know it better than I do. Commissioner Gibson, what
Natural
NRCS
Resources
stands
and Conservation
for.
Service.
That's right. Thank you. But we got those, were awarded those funds back in 2012. So as early as spring 2012, the federal government side, NRCS, hired McMillan Group, is what they were called, and they went out and they assessed the damage of all these areas that Lance showed. So they went up and down the entire river, and they had, if I remember right, it was hundreds of locations where damage had taken place, but we didn't have the money to address all those damages.
Jared, when you say they, you mean NRCS?
Yeah, the McMillan Group, the group they hired. Yep.
And the McMillan Group is who?
They're a firm. They're an environmental firm, you could say, that assesses damages on rivers and
so we can safely say they had engineers doing all this.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and this is they're a big team. I mean, they're a team of probably in all about 20 different engineers and biologists, environmentalists. So NRCS hired them to go up and down the river to assess the damages, and also they had to be involved in the process to tell the county where we could spend this money and if that made sense or not. And the reason why I want to get into that just a little bit is so that we can understand why the Little Weber and where it's at and how that makes sense. So those they're called damage survey reports, and they went up and down the river and said, here's all the damages that have happened up and down the river. They also told us what we could spend money on. There were some damages, federal money, all the federal money. There were damages a ways out west, just east of Ogden Bay, that was on it was on property that was not agricultural land. They weren't raising crops. There really wasn't they deemed that there wasn't a need to go in and do some of the bank protection sites that Lance had shown. And that's their job. They tell us what we're able to spend our monies on and what we're not. So obviously as we come up further east on the river and come into the agricultural properties and residential properties, that's when we start seeing that there's damages to structures and damages to croplands. And so they had to evaluate each of those areas and say which ones could we spend the monies on and which ones we could not spend the money on. So that process began back in April 2012. We were involved in that. We went along on the boat rides with them. We reviewed those reports. We let them know all the areas that were affected by this. Lance had been up and down the river several times and was able to discuss with them as they were preparing their reports. Back in 2012 also is when the county began the process of hiring design firms to help us out with the design work. That mainly included Bowen & Collins. They're our main design firm that did our work for us in western Weber County. We had one project up at South Fork in the Upper Valley, and JUB Engineers did that work for us. That was a small project, gabion basket replacement. But the majority of the work was done by Bowen Collins Associates out west here. So we hired a separate engineering firm to assess the design and what needed to be done. At that time, we also hired a public information firm, PI firm. We did not have the ability internally to have the staff needed to contact residents, to set up open houses, to do all the notifications of the projects and what was happening and when and who needed to be notified. So we hired the Langdon Group as their name. They've done a lot of work with UDOT, a lot of work throughout the state, and we hired them to do our public information process for us. And I apologize, I don't want this to be too monotonous, but I just want to make sure
It's all helpful.
we let you know everything that we did there. First open house, September 13th, 2012. I wanted to mention that PI group because we hired them to notify all the residents and how we needed to notify them. We did mailers. We got as much email contact information as we could. We posted it also in the throughout the county at different locations, the libraries, stores, local stores, schools. We also put it in the paper. So we notified everybody that we could. We had, in the meanwhile, we had been contacting property owners that we believe would be affected by the projects up and down the river. So we really tried to get a hold of everybody we could up and down the river. So our first public open house was September 13th, 2012. We have the open house to get input from the public. And when we get that input from the public, we can look and see how that will affect negatively or positively the project and how we do that there. So there's also another open house we'll get to in a minute that we had. So that's the beginning processes. This was 2 years ago that NRCS starts and involves the county and how we get started. We, as I said, we hired Bowen Collins and Associates, and they surveyed the entire area. And when I say surveyed, technical survey, the area, the river. They did what's called bathymetrics in the Little Weber area, Ogden Bay area, where they actually surveyed the bottom of the river channel also to try and understand what was happening during the flood stages, where the water was going, and what effects these projects had. I'm going to jump back to the McMillan Group because they also do what's called an environmental assessment. So for the projects, of all the projects that Lance showed, Ogden Bay and the Little Weber Cutoff Channel, those two needed to have what's called an environmental assessment done on them. I didn't understand it at first. I had to ask them, well, what does this mean and what are we doing and how are we doing it? And really, I think the best way that I could publicly explain it quickly is a project management assessment. They go in and look at the projects. They go in and look at the alternatives. They give alternatives to each of the projects. And they work closely with Bowen and Collins, the design engineer, to analyze and try and dictate what's the best option. And that's for both Ogden Bay and what we were looking at and assessing there, and also the Little Weber Cutoff Channel. Let me jump back to public involvement with that environmental assessment plan. By law, they have to have another open house. So we had our second open house was August 1st, 2013. Again, we had our PI group do the same process as far as notification and who we were notifying and why, and had, I think in the second open house we had better turnout, I believe, than we did on the first one. But that second open house was for responses from the residents and public to include in the environmental assessment report. That report, once that report was finalized, it's a good 4-inch thick report, but it had to include all of the residents' input. And I believe it included, for the most part, all the residents that were directly affected, their input and their thoughts on what needed to be done there. Now, once they got all that input, then the McMillan Group then says, this is what we recommend to do. This is the option. Here's the different options. Here's the negatives and positives about each, and this is what we recommend happen. And that's what happens with the final assessment report. Now, that final assessment report we finalized in 2014, March of 2014. So I just want to input also timing, because this all revolves around timing. That's the reason why we have this resolution today, is getting it done in time, and the federal government are giving us funds for a certain amount of time. It says that the name of the funding mechanism is Emergency Watershed Funds. When they're emergency funds, they technically have 220 days to spend those dollars. Now, initially back in 2012, when we talked to NRCS, there's no way we're going to get $13 million spent in 220 days. And initially back then, they said absolutely no problem. In fact, it happens often where we file a document for an extension, and then they say you get another 220 days after that. I'd have to count and remember how many we're at now, but I believe we're at either 3 or 4 extensions of 220 days. We just filed a 90-day extension that gets us to the end of the summer, start of the fall, and that's the last extension I believe we're able to get. We're not 100% sure, but I believe that's the last extension will be given. And so we've known since the start of this year that timing is the essence of finishing these projects. And so I wanted to make sure that that was on record too. We've got to get these done in time. We just don't have the time to continue to analyze and discuss.
Well, isn't it time anyway, Jared? I mean, don't we, after 4 years of working on this project, isn't it time to get this thing finished?
Yeah, yes, and that's what the federal government's also telling us. They're saying that we're done. We're done. We're ready. We need it to be spent, and we're not going to be giving you these monies anymore if you don't spend them. And so this is
Jared, really quickly.
Sorry.
So when the McMillan Group, they worked in conjunction with Bowen Collins to create these recommendations, or did the McMillan Group come up with their recommendations on their own from their assessment?
Yeah, Bowen and Collins was able to give them some data and some input.
Okay.
But the process is that McMillan does come up with their own assessments initially. McMillan Group.
So
correct.
did McMillan, when they make a recommendation, is it really a recommendation or is it more of a requirement?
It's a recommendation, but
Can you go outside their recommendations, or will you not get the federal funding?
There's a good possibility you wouldn't get the federal funding.
So
for the example I gave before, if there is property that was damaged, that it's not being farmed, there's no damage to structures. As Lance said, the river moves, and if it shifts over a little bit in that area, then McMillan would come back and say, we're not planning on spending, we don't need to spend money, we can't justify spending the money in that area.
Commissioner, just to clarify here, NRCS hired McMillan to come up with recommendations within their program. So McMillan was actually working for NRCS at the time as an agent of NRCS. So it was almost as if NRCS was telling us these are the recommendations that you need to do because McMillan was working for NRCS.
And that's what I guess what my question was, is if McMillan's working for NRCS and they come up with recommendations.
Correct.
NRCS is providing the funding, then they're really not recommendations or requirements, because if you go outside their recommendations, you're probably not going to receive the funding unless McMillan comes back and says, well, we've changed our mind and we will recommend that also.
That sounds about right. I don't want to say that there's no way they would do it, but yeah, it would go through another process again.
Okay.
I think it's fair to add as well that the engineering firm that the county then hired, Bowen and Collins, through the program, is very well respected as well. In fact, I would call them one of the leaders in this type of project throughout the state and region. And so I think that it's fair to say that NRCS has given them some, they've taken their suggestions seriously. And so when they've come up with ideas and said, hey, we think this will work or that'll work, NRCS has given some deference to that, would you say?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and Bowen and Collins, the reason why we chose them is they've done more NRCS work that relates to the work we've done than any other firm in the state. So.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt your flow there.
That's fine.
Reflow.
Recharge. I just wanted to make sure that we realize with the environmental assessment also that date. I think I ended on, I was discussing the date of 2014 in the spring. Until we had the final EA report, we could not do any finalization on our design. We had approximately a 30% design on that Little Weber, focusing on the Little Weber channel. We had about a 30% design on that and on Ogden Bay both. But until we had a final EA report, we could not move any further because we did not know how that would read. We had a good idea, but we still had to wait till that was finalized. So that was finalized in 2014 of March.
Okay, so as we go along, because when I was in 2011, the flood, I was sandbagging. I wasn't making decisions.
Thank you. By the way.
When you say we were designing, who's we? Who designed this whole thing? Did you design this? Did the McMillan Group? Did Bowen and Collins? Where did the design come from?
I would say Bowen Collins did the design. Yep.
All right, thank you.
So when we had that final EA report that was submitted and approved in March of 2014, we immediately submitted for our Army Corps permit for the Little Weber Channel. So, and the reason why I want to build that up is because we were very pinched on time to begin with this project. So we started that Corps permit. We actually just got the Corps permit literally about 3 weeks ago. About 3 weeks, I meant to say 3 months, about 3 months ago. We were able to start on the upper section, and I'll point it out to you here in a minute, of the channel, because there wasn't any wetlands affected in that area. So it was really a time crunch on the Little Weber Channel on what we could do and when and how quick we needed that to happen. I gave you a little bit of background of all the projects in general, but what I'd like to do, and of course with Lance's input, I really want to focus on the Little Weber Channel and what we've done up to this point and where we're at in that process. So with this aerial that we've got, I just want to show you real quick for those who haven't been out here, but Lance was pointing out the break in that happened in 1952 in the channel there. I believe in 83 it was somewhere in the vicinity also, a little bit north of it, south of it, right around in that area. One thing that Lance didn't mention, there's literally a map out in the hall here, 1896, that shows that I say pioneers, I don't know if that's the right word to say, but the early settlers, I guess you could say, that they show a diversion area within, I believe, a couple hundred feet. I measured it the one time, I think it was about 250 feet of that area. They diverted the water in that area, and I believe it came down and then back up again, but they also diverted water from that location. So it's been a location where the river really is looking to get out and head west. If you haven't been out there lately, we've got the concrete channel is now built from the river to 5500 west. That's I want to say completed. They might have some small things to finalize there, but that concrete channel is in. You saw a picture of the diversion structure that Lance showed us that's up in that area. We have the permanent easement for this property. We've had that since 2011. At the time, the authorized signees of that property signed a permanent easement in 2011 to say we want the county to have the ability to get the water out in that area. So we have a permanent easement currently on that property right here on this first section. The next section of the design goes from 5500 west to 5900 west, and that's the Hanson property. So that entire section there affects the Hansons. The last section, and we'll get back to that, the last section is Gary Nilsson's section, which comes around his home and connects to the Little Weber, what they call the Little Weber Channel. Right in that area is where that ends. Gary Nilsson, similar to the Hansons, Gary Nilsson also had things he wanted to get through and make sure that he could operate his property correctly. So we have a right to occupy agreement signed with him that he signed approximately, I believe it was about a month ago. So currently our contractor has started work on the property in that area. As you can see, well, let me back up a little bit on the EA reports. McMillan designated more money to this location than any other location, any other project we did. And the reason they did that is because of the input from Bowen Collins on the effect that this release of water at this location will have on properties and on structures. I don't know the exact effects everywhere. All I know is that water is going to be quite a bit lower upstream, not far upstream, a little bit upstream, but quite a bit downstream. So this area was agreed upon by McMillan for a location. And I want to mention too, I know that's been brought up quite a bit, but the option 2 that McMillan had on the Little Weber channel was coming off of this Oxbow area in this area and connecting onto the existing channel. The other reason we're doing it in concrete is not only for width, like Lance mentioned, down to 30 feet, but also for maintenance. If we had that as an open channel, it'd be a yearly maintenance and a lot of work for the county for years to come. So I believe the one thing that they said this was not a good option for was for finance, due to the wetlands, and if to do a concrete channel through that area would have taken expended a lot more money. And as you can see here, we already had an existing permanent easement here. We had this location to go. I also, you can clearly see the effect that this channel has on the Hanson property. And I think it's safe to say that they will be affected more than any other resident with these projects that we're doing out here. They will have a concrete channel going through their property. At the same time, we believe that is going to mitigate the flooding when it does happen. It will mitigate it in all the area. It'll also mitigate it in the area they live in. But with that said, it will affect their property. Easement, what's this update? So I'll wrap up real quick with where we're at on the easement process with the Hansons, because I do want to mention, I think ideally, if I were to paint the pretty picture, the Hansons would have signed on 3 or 4 months ago, and we wouldn't have to be doing this today, and we'd be good to go. So that did not take place. There was, due to the time crunch, due to the Hansons definitely didn't want to see this on their property. As we've heard in months past, they were trying to do everything they could to have it not happen on their property, and we've just got to move forward. The 2 sections are going to be in place here in a couple more months. So approximately 2 weeks ago, both Larry and Doug have taken quite a bit of time with the county. We spent about 4 hours on their property and spent 2 or 3 different meetings with them, sitting down, discussing everything that we need to make sure we do so that they can continue to operate how they've operated, how they operate now. And that's a big concern. We want to make sure that they can continue to water their fields, work their pasture like they have now, same way they can afterwards, and it won't be the same. There's going to be a concrete channel there, but we've gone through a lot of iterations, and we're very close. I believe we have 2 more items left that we've just got to verify, and I've got to verify with the attorneys before we'll have all their items addressed. So I wanted to make sure that was understood also, that we have worked. I wish we didn't have to go through the process of this. I wish we could have got it taken care of earlier. There's a lot of time constraints. The Hansons did not want to see it go through. So those were some of the things that have really pushed it to this point. But I do appreciate the time that they have taken, especially the last couple of weeks, to try and get all these things resolved. So I apologize for the fire hose, and I don't know if I was talking too fast or not, but let me know if you've got any questions.
Appreciate that review. Lance, anything else you want to add? No, I can't think of anything right now. Stay tuned. Now and then I have a bright idea. All right. We did promise the Hansons an opportunity to respond. This particular action is specific to their property because the others have been taken care of, and so we, even though it's not a public hearing where this affects them directly, we want them to have the opportunity to respond with their concerns and talk to us about where we're at here. So come on up.
Commissioners, Douglas Hanson. I'm live in West Weber, but that's our farm. It seriously and critically impacts our farming operation. It bisects our pasture. It restricts a lot of things we could function and have been functioning over many years. I have to say, wow, what a presentation you've had. That's nearly an hour of history getting up to the resolution. You've got a lot of information there, and I would like to take some time to correct some of that information.
Take all the time you need.
I can't. We don't have that much time, but I want to hit a couple of highlights.
Take all the time you need. The timer's for public comment, so take all the
Okay,
time
so
you need.
what I want for time, I'm going to hit some highlights. First of all, we are survivors. Now, we were told about the 52 flood, the 83 flood, and the 11 flood. And what you didn't hear about was the 36 flood and the 48 flood. So our families have lived there during all those floods, and we've survived them. We're still there, and we're still working. We're still trying to farm, in spite of all those things. So we're used to the flooding, and we know what the river can do. There are several other things I want to just clarify, as was mentioned about the public hearings that were done. We did attend the one in September. We did make comment, and my comments are in the EA assessment in that book. They're in that book. I made comments, suggested alternatives to what they had proposed, and offered my suggestions and recommendations. In March of 14, when the EA was finalized, there was a public comment time. I sent a letter to the state conservationists as well as Jared, stating my opinion that there are other alternatives that I thought were more efficient, more effective. I have talked to the previous commissioners. I've talked to you at various times about other alternatives we thought were more efficient, particularly getting the Weber River to heal itself so it would carry the water it needs. Aside from that, we have done a lot to work with the commissioners, the county, since about '97, and trying to help the flood situation by helping the river get cleaned, get sediment out, get it cleared so it would heal itself, therefore carry more water. Nothing has occurred in that, obviously, because we had the 11 flood, and we were impacted by that. We have since that time had discussions with various groups in the county, commissioners and others, to explain our position and say this is what we think and there are better ways. I've been before the commission several times earlier this year to try to define a little better those alternatives in our assessment. Obviously, those things have not happened that we suggested, so we are dealing with the current situation, which is this the Little Weber Cutoff Canal through our property. In that regards, we have been working with Jared excuse me, to try to mitigate all the problems we had. The original design, which was put out, did not have any irrigation system on there and very little drainage, and didn't have sufficient access that we needed to operate our farm. We talked a lot verbally about that. Nothing seemed to occur. So then we had to go to written, and we come up with a list of things that were to be dealt with, and they have been. We worked with Jared. He's acknowledged those, and they've been put, most of them, not all, have been put on the current construction drawing of that area. That makes us more satisfied that maybe we'll get back what we have now so that we can continue to farm about, particularly on the first drawing, that didn't have those things, that now we're getting and quite insured, and we're going to do that in agreement, which I have the addendum that I sent to Jared even this morning after our discussions yesterday on the items we agreed to. So that addendum we've got that's nearly complete, and we're going to complete that and try to resolve all the issues to make sure that they're either agreed to with details to be determined or they are agreed to in detail. So out of about 50 some odd items, there's only about 4 to 5 that are remaining to get details. And I think there are only a couple that we have to have an agreement on, as Jared said. But we're very close to getting that agreement. And we're very close to being able to feel comfortable. Well, we'll never feel comfortable. We can sign that right of entry and occupancy. So we're really close to that. We've just got some wording from finalization of certain issues to accomplish. And once that's done, I think we can go ahead with that and not proceed with the eminent domain. That's one thing that will cost us both a lot of money and a lot of time. And I'd like to try to reach that agreement so we can sign prior to that, and we want to help the county as well as us before we go into that position. So I would recommend that you have the resolution before you. You're going to vote on that resolution. I would recommend postponing that vote a week so that we can finalize this and maybe not even have the resolution. Barring that, if that's not successful, I would request that on the resolution, the second page, it talks about the effective date of the resolution. If you would make that at least 5 to 7 days from now, that would give us time, I think, to finalize the various details that we need to go ahead. And that doesn't finalize all the details. We still have work to do, but at least it gives a right to occupancy agreement in place. And that would preclude the eminent domain, I would think. There's other issues, of course, that we need to work on as far as the price and some other things. So there's a lot of issues to be worked, but we can do that, as I understand, after we sign that right to enter and occupy, that we can continue to negotiate various details of issues, and we can continue to work with the county and getting those things that we feel we really need in order to properly function and operate the way we've had in the past. And that's what we want. Of course, we don't want the canal. We don't want that first place, but since it's there and we are going to get it, we want to at least put back into the way we should be so that we can operate and function, even now limited because it's that Great Wall of China in our place. We're going to have to function as best we can, and we want to be as close to that as we can. And so we're working on that. So that's my request to you, is to postpone that a little bit more so we can finalize this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Hello, my name is Jim Flynn. I'm a civil engineer with Hanson Associates, and I'm here to help the Hansons. A few weeks ago, he asked me to look at their drainage situation in regards to this, and I'd like to just express that I think you've noticed a remarkable turnaround from what you probably heard a month or two ago. I hope you sense that. This is no longer so much in the throes of an adversarial relationship. A certain hurdle, a major hurdle has been crossed as far as
best for 4 or 5 days on a date that was on the resolution for, I guess, a start date or a legal adoption date. Do you know? I can't find that on this. He referenced a second page on it, but I'm not finding that.
It should be in, I think, section 5, Commissioner.
At the bottom.
Where it right now reads it would be effective.
What page?
And if I can add to this resolution starts the process, but it does not start the lawsuit, so to speak. We have 30 days as a statutory requirement after the adoption of this resolution before the condemnation action can be filed. So you'd have at least 30 days. I have no objection to the commission if they decide they want to postpone this for 5 days or however long. You can do that. But again, condemnation actions, this is a process, governmental process, but the court action is delayed by at least 30 days. And there's some things that have to happen during that 30 days. So if the parties are this close, I'm the first one to agree, even though I'm a lawyer. The only people that usually win in lawsuits are lawyers. It's usually a lose-lose to both parties, both in expenses and emotions and other things. But it would take another 30 days before a condemnation action could be filed in the first place.
Is there a requirement? There's a requirement that you have to wait 30 days for actions. Is there a requirement that after 30 days that action can continue, or could you wait another couple of weeks, or will that expire?
To agreement on an occupancy agreement, then, and we will have some scheduled mediations with the property rights ombudsman, probably within that period as well. If the parties come to an agreement and sign an occupancy agreement, we probably never file the condemnation action.
Okay.
So there are several options for you there.
Okay. Well, wow, it's been an interesting discussion and a long one. I know we're all tired. It's been informative. We talked about this in the past a little bit, and I think I'll just add my thanks again. This really was quite an experience. This particular flood experience happened in the first season of my term as county commissioner, and I have to admit I was tasked with dealing with a lot of the day-to-day responses in conjunction with our emergency manager, our county engineer at the time, and roads department and others, and it was a major challenge. I have to admit I drove through the community just looking at the project, and do it frequently, but as recently as a couple of days ago, and as I drove through and saw some of the homes that we sandbagged, and we're working very hard to keep water off of, I was grateful for good people in that community who were willing to do an awful lot to try and put forth their effort. Commissioner Ebert as well. I think not even being from that community was out there helping and sandbagging, and what a blessing. I also have to admit I felt a flood of memories kind of come back as I remembered kind of being a part of of a crew that was trying to stop that breach as it came apart, and I don't know how I ended up to be the guy hanging down in trying to attach a chain to one of the pylons and stop something, but I think they were willing to sacrifice me, if you know what I mean. But as I remember an awful lot of those experiences where we were dealing with some serious peril. I mean, there were people who were putting their lives on the line. It was a tough situation. I know that the Hansons have been through this many times, and it's been a tough thing. Many of the members of that community, including my family, have been through these flood events, and they are not fun. And yet here we are, so far removed almost. What would we give Doug for just a little bit of that water this year running down that river and being in the right place? And so it feels odd that we're talking about flooding right now when we're in the throes of the worst drought probably now in my lifetime. But as I look back and I think of all of those decisions and emotions that led to us kind of tackling this project, I am so grateful for a community that has been willing to say, what can we do to make this work and make it better? We went to the state, who to this point has not, before this, has not been willing to address any of our concerns. I won't say any, that's not a fair statement. But we have not had the type of response that we desired, I think, from a county level, from a landowner perspective, from the state. They were basically MIA in years past, and they came to the table in a big way. It's still not what we totally hoped for and expected from them, but they came to the table in a big way and said, we will be your partners in correcting this problem and making it better for the future. Weber Basin was very instrumental and helpful as well. As far as I'm concerned, that diversion or the cleaning project at the head of the Weber,
don't look at me,
Willard Canal channel was a huge impact and a huge benefit. The debris removal. I mean, literally, sometimes I think we ought to change the name of our roads department to the Department of Roads and Waterways, because unfortunately, we as a county have neglected our waterways in the past. It has been something that's only been taken care of in an emergency situation, and we've neglected them, and that's to a certain extent what gets us in the challenge that we are now. And so I shouldn't have started mentioning them because I'm sure I missed some, but what a opportunity it has been to see so many people come together and say, we're going to fix this problem. We may not be able to guarantee 100%, but we're going to give ourselves tools in the toolbox to make this work, to be able to fix whatever we can fix. And really, that's what we're all about. This, to me, this portion of the project is the most expensive of what we've done. It is very, very important to the overall comprehensive nature of the program. And to me, it would be very, very unfortunate to the entire community should this particular part not be completed. Now, I think we're past that because we have done that construction throughout most of the project, and we have this section yet to go. And I will say, I'll agree and give thanks as well to where we are today. I think we are in a much better place. I think we've crossed some major hurdles, and I appreciate your comments about how we have gotten there. But frankly, one of the challenges that we have faced is that we have exhausted so many efforts as to how to get to this point. And I don't want to do anything to stop the progress, but the reality is it's been 4 years that we have been trying to get these particular property owners to this point, and I just want to make sure that let me just explain what I think needs to be explained just a little bit more with the contractor. As you see now, we have the project basically completed on one end, construction starting on the other end, and to not finish construction in the middle would be just as silly as building a road without the section in the middle. I mean, it would have to function. In order for it to function properly, it has to be done in the middle. And to this point, as referenced by the fact that there are other property owners throughout the project that have worked very, very hard with similar impacts to their properties to work with the project. One was referenced that signed the original permanent easement in 2011, which frankly has, all the way in between that point has been opportunities. I don't believe that we have treated the Hansons any different than those other property owners. I think that we have tried at least from my understanding of what the engineers have done, they have tried very hard, and from my perspective, I certainly have, to make sure that they have been treated just like the others in being notified and having the opportunities to comment. But what we've continually had is we're just no. We're just not going to deal with it. And so now we're faced with the challenge of are we there or are we not? And I will tell you this. I never thought, a little bit of a reference to what Lance said, but I never thought that I'd be in the position in my government service, in my political service, to be sitting here and considering an option, a resolution for eminent domain. That's not something that I would have painted in my future, because I am very, very concerned about impacts to individual property owners. Being a property owner, I would want any agency or entity to do everything they possibly can to rectify and mitigate challenges that come before us. I believe that Weber County has done that in this case. We have offered that from the beginning, and part of the problem, as was described by one of the speakers, was that maybe frankly at a point we were dealing with the wrong person, and we apologize for that if the communication wasn't getting to all of the members of the LLC. I don't know if that's truly the case or not, but we were going by what we were. If someone was representing to us that they had the ability to negotiate and speak on behalf of the corporation, that's who we have to work with. And in fact, even to the point where there was a permanent easement signed over 2/3 of this right of way for this particular project in 2011 when the first one was signed. So it's not until recently that we find out that the LLC says this person doesn't have the authority to sign for the LLC. And so now we're starting back to the beginning and saying, okay, what do we have to do to make sure that we're dealing with the appropriate people and following the appropriate process? And that's what this is all about. That's what this resolution is about. We have to make sure that every step is taken so that, now we don't have to demobilize a constructor again, a contractor, and have them leave the area while we work out the details that should have been worked out years ago. And so I just want to get this right. I want it to be done appropriately. I reiterate my commitment to the Hansons. I think it's unfortunate that somehow they may have perceived that they had to push it to this point for us to come to negotiate, because I will reiterate that my point, my hope, and my desire has been that all the way along. I hope that we can continue to do that. We will continue to offer, from my perspective, anything that I can do to make sure that the impacts are minimized. I know that there will always be some impacts. They'll be tough. But Jared, this is me speaking. I hope that every effort is taken to minimize impacts. That being said, this project rises to a very, very important level of public good in my mind, one that is critical to the public health and safety. Clearly rises to the level that makes me comfortable saying, where we are now, I am willing to authorize the use on behalf of the taxpayers of eminent domain for a project for this project as it has been designed. I think it's been clearly proven and clearly shown that proper process has been followed, that proper planning has occurred, that proper engineering has occurred, that we have a project here that will accomplish its intended goal. I think that's just critical that those things have happened, and I believe that they have. Now the question is, how do we move forward in a way that really makes sense? And I'm just hoping that whatever path we end up taking, that these needs that have been expressed today and these desires are continually heard, and that we go above and beyond doing anything that we possibly can within the law to mitigate those concerns. I say within the law because we are aware that there are certain things we can't do. We can't pay more money than certain property is worth because it's taxpayer money, right? That's not the way eminent domain works. We can't and shouldn't, but we should do everything we can to mitigate concerns. And the fact that we have had good participation, some people, in fact, some of the people who have been impacted in similar manners to the Hansons in this process have not even asked for compensation. So I know that there is some perceived benefit, at least on some property owners' parts, because of the fact that they feel like this will be a positive step in protecting their assets and their families. And so that doesn't in any way, shape, or form make me say that no one should be adequately compensated. In fact, I believe that they should. We fully intend through the process to go above and beyond that. That's my opinion anyway, and I hope that the Hansons will understand, the type of position that we are in, and that they will continue to be working with the county to make this process go forward. So with that, I just have one more procedural question, I think, for Dave, and it goes to what Commissioner Ebert asked. If we were to, I still haven't been able to locate on my copy of the resolution date. So it says adopt. So if it's the page I'm looking at, is it where it says adopted by the county commission on such a date, Dave, on the second page? Adopted by.
Yes, it can be adopted. Section 5, you could change the effective date of the
there an effective date that's separate from the date that it's, so it would just change the sentence, it would change the way that it read, because this copy says adopted by the county commission this such and such day of 2015.
Do you not have a section 5 on the prior page?
It's section 5 on the bottom of page 2.
Not on the second page. This resolution.
Okay. Well, I guess my question is simply, I mean, my concern is if we adopt it today, what true effect does this have other than start the clock on the 30 days? Dave, I guess we could come back and do this again next week if something doesn't happen, but I
guess the question I'd have for Mr. Hansen or for the Hansens is how far out are you until you feel you will gain final resolution with those 4 or 5 items that were left? Are you a week away? Are you 2 weeks away? Or what are your thoughts?
Again, if I can address that, we got so close yesterday in our discussion with Jared. We went through the list of items we had accumulated over the last couple of months of issues that we needed, the irrigation system and all those other things. So we have come to an agreement on those. We have about 4 or 5 things that we have not details on, but we've agreed they will be put in. They're structures that help, such as watering cattle, make sure they have water. So that's something you need to do. You have to do anyway. So we're just trying to figure out the solution to that, to make sure that the cattle grazing out there have access to water, which the canal exempts them from. But we're working on the details of that, but the fact that they will get water is an agreement. So an agreement in principle, but not in details. And those details can be worked out, as I understand, once we sign the agreement to enter and occupy. Yes.
Jared, do you feel that's a fair representation of where we're at, that we have basically an agreement on the table working through 4 or 5 small options to get there? Do you think that a timetable of a week is a viable timetable to?
I really think by the end of this week we should be able to have that agreement in place, I believe.
Okay, we can do that. And then the details, as I understand, we can work out later on the details of some of these structures, just where they're going to be, what size, how that's going to operate, like the well and the pump there and all those things that we need to clarify in the end, but we can work on that in the interim after we sign the agreement. So signature of the agreement is close. End of the week, maximum by this time next week, 14th. We're gonna work on it, do as fast as we can.
So, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So, Dave, I guess my question comes back to 30 days plus a week, or 30 days, basically, is the way I'm looking at this. Because the bottom line is we do have a construction crew, after 4 years of planning, that's sitting there on the property. They're working on other areas right now, but they're, they would very much, it would be prudent for them to be able to work on this as soon as possible, as it should have been, in my opinion, the second part of the process instead of moving to the other end. But so my question is, I appreciate the fact that we think we're within a week. If we're within a week, then we surely ought to be able to wrap up these questions within 30 days, which would be the soonest that we could move forward with the next step. My question is, wouldn't it be better for us to start this process by adopting the resolution today and assume that we can resolve these things within that 30-day period? Does it make sense? Is there any other, I guess my question, Dave, is there any other negative impact in your mind? I mean, does this resolution in and of itself do anything to harm the Hansens other than starting the clock ticking towards a time when we could file a pending action with the court?
No. The practical effect of this resolution would be that after adoption, you would have 30 days before the county can go forward with a condemnation suit. The suit is initiated by filing it in district court with a summons and complaint. It seems to me, other than maybe a softening of feelings, if you want to ensure that if things fell apart for any given reason, that you could move forward in 30 days, you'd adopt the resolution today. It appears to me, and I don't know how I judge it, except the two parties that are involved in the negotiations say they're going to wrap this up within a week. If they do, I don't think the commission has to authorize us to go forward with that lawsuit anyhow. We don't just do it on our own volition. Then there would be no need to file that lawsuit if we come to that agreement, because the occupancy agreement, again, doesn't establish value, as Mr. Hanson indicated. We would be doing that later through a mediation process, or if we couldn't do it through the mediation, dropping back and starting the lawsuit. So, if you put this effective, I would not recommend that you hold the resolution for a week. If you were so inclined, I'd recommend you postpone the effective date, but that does add to the 30 days that you've indicated.
Which at this point, I just caution that any days at this point with where we're at with the contractor could be a problem. I am grateful for. I mean, you use the word soften, and I'm definitely softened by what I'm hearing today, and I'm hoping that and I appreciate that on the part of the Hansons. With that recommendation, Dave, Mr. Wilson, to me, it sounds like our choices ought to be that we probably had not to hold the resolution, but I would support. I don't know, Commissioner, give me your thoughts. I'm kind of speechless here.
Well, it's been a long journey. Started with Larry. So at the end of this journey, I want Larry to be nice to me. That's all I'm really worried about. I am committed to reducing the impact on the Hansons to with every decision in here to the very smallest degree that we can. And I've made that very clear. And I've talked to Jared a tremendous amount of times. I've talked to Holland. They've made trips out. They've made phone calls to try to deal with the issue. We've had a tremendous amount of communication, and I apologize that maybe that communication didn't make it to all the members of the LLC. We're aware of that now, and we try to reach out when we have any type of communication and contact. That being said, this is a project just like a transportation project or just like a sewer project where it has long-term implications and impact to the entire community. And that's one of the things we really have to look at, balancing the private property owner's rights against the entire community and the effect of a project like this on the entire community. And that's the struggle that we have. My preference would never to do eminent domain, and I hesitate when I have the property owners agreeing to a one-week timetable to resolve this. That's where my struggle is. I believe that the Hansons are men and women of their word, and if they say they're going to resolve this in a week's time, and they tentatively have an agreement on the table, I have a tendency to believe that. But again, I have to weigh that against the entire community and my responsibility to the community. So I'm struggling a bit, just to be honest with you. What I hope is that if we were to pass a resolution and put a timetable a week out to the 14th, if Karen would be comfortable with that, and if that would meet the timetable that Doug has, then I would be comfortable in doing that. And what I would hope is that that would meet both of the needs of both the commission office and the county and the Hansons' timetable that they're comfortable with. If they're comfortable with that, that's the resolution that I would suggest we pass.
My only concern is, basically, what are we saying then, that we can't resolve this within 30 days? Because that's all we're doing is saying then that we're going to resolve it within
Correct.
30 plus 7.
Correct.
So
we had
or
a
at
week.
least
We had a week to that timetable. We put off the clock for a week.
But if that's what it takes, I can support that motion. But that, I guess all I'm saying is, if we can do it in a week, we can do it in 30. So we probably ought to consider the option there. But I
agree with that. Jared says that he's comfortable that they're at the table today, and the Hansons are comfortable at their table today. So I think awake one way or the other, I think is a good resolution to this.
Karen, you were acting like you wanted to say something. Will you just come up one more time and just let me clarify then? Do you feel as though now the way that what the resolution actually does has been explained, do you feel as though that still accomplishes what you want here if we were to put a date on it of 7 days from now?
We would appreciate that. I think part of the thing is what your law office said was that it would help soothe some feelings. I don't think it won't take longer than a week. As long as Jared's available and Doug's available, it will happen. I think it would help some feelings, some bad feelings between us and the county if we were given that, so that this resolution is not on the books to be looked back at or on the records in any way.
So Dave, would
That's what I'm looking at.
Thank you. Stay there because I'm not quite sure. Dave, does that mean the resolution would go away in 30 days? It would be null and void if we had an agreement in 30 days?
Or if we had an agreement before the resolution.
Sorry, within 7 days?
Again, the resolution, if you read it, simply authorizes, the resolution simply authorizes you to move forward. It doesn't command the county to move forward. It's a directive to the county attorney's office to move forward. Can't happen within that 30 days, but again, we respond to you. So if the happy medium would be, I don't know if it's a happy medium, that may be going too far. If you adopt the resolution today with not an effective date of immediately, but an effective date of April 14th, then you're giving 37 days possible. Now, if we wrap it up within a week, when I say the resolution goes away, a resolution doesn't have a lot of legal effect, except in this instance, to start the clock. But if everybody comes, if we get to the occupancy, there's no reason to proceed.
File a court action.
So, I just, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
We have lived a long time with the Hanson name, hopefully being one of honesty and uprightness. And so that's what we're looking to defend. I have recently had the opportunity to go through my father's papers of loans he had to take out because of bad crops or different circumstances, bad health, and he paid off the loans. And so in my opinion, in my view, and I know mine is emotionally driven, I just want that to be for my father. Give us a week for my dad.
I can do that.
Thank you.
If you can.
I can. Do we have a resolution number? I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 25, authorizing eminent domain proceedings related to the Little Weber River Cutoff Channel project to, 1 second, let me pull this up. To be adopted by the County Commission of Weber County on the 14th day of April 2015.
Let me clarify, Commissioner.
Be adopted today, but with the effective date of?
You would be adopting it today with an effective date.
Okay. So moved.
All right. I think I'll second that motion. Discussion to the motion.
I appreciate all the parties that have been involved. Larry, appreciate you. But I also appreciate that the Hansons have reached out to others within the community, but also to Mr. Flint to try to find a way to rectify this and to bring all the parties together. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult decision. There's a lot of things that are weighed as we review this. Our hands are somewhat tied again because a lot of this is federal grant money, and there's requirements by the feds on how they put a project together. Jared doesn't always have within his purview the ability to change things, but what we can change to reduce the effect, the negative effect on the property owners, we are committed to do. And I will make that commitment, and I'll continue to make that commitment to you. I've made it before, and I'll make it again to you. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate your civil nature and the way that we've come together. Because the reality of it is, this is a project that's going to affect our children 10, 15 to 20 to 30 years that will not be farmland forever. And that will be property that will be residential or commercial or manufacturing. And we've just, as in roads and in sewers, we have to start the planning process now. So thank you for your time.
I agree, Commissioner. Thank you for that. And I just want to, again, thank all of those property owners. From time to time, there are times when we do feel like we, as individuals, get stuck holding the bag for a larger group. And I know that the Hansons have felt this way in this particular case, and some of the other property owners have as well, but have been willing to come to the table in a difficult way and say we do see the public need here, and just try and make it so that we're not destroyed in our ability to move forward. So I just, the Hansons are the ones here, and I think it just all of those involved ought to have the thanks, including the Hansons for being a part of this. So anyway, motion is on the table. We've had discussion. Roll call vote on the resolution.
Commissioner Ebert?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Fatima. Okay, we are, holy cow, I can't even find my agenda now. Assignment of Pledge of Allegiance and Thought of the Day for Tuesday, April 7th, 2015 at 10 a.m. Steph, are you going to be here? Would you be willing to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance? Stephanie Ebert will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thought of the Day will be Commissioner Ebert.
Again.
Who was supposed to be today. And we'll move to our last item on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Cassidy, way do you spend your birthday?
Could I have just a moment, please, before we adjourn?
Well, you can come up and you won't be on the public record.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I came special today because I wanted to personally express my appreciation to you, commissioners, for the service that you render us people in Weber County. I know that there are many, many important decisions that you make which are very, very difficult. I recall years and years ago, the only commissioner we had who was a Republican elected was Boyd Story, a kind, sweet, gentle man. And
just like me, right?
And I can remember talking to him. I don't remember what the issue was, but I was really passionate about it and had a real strong opinion. And I was talking to him concerning it. And he listened very patiently to me. And he says, Verda, he says, you must remember that I represent all of the people in Weber County, not just your opinion, but everybody's opinion. And you know, that just struck me right to my heart. And that has taught me such a great lesson, which I have put to use during all of my political service through all of these years. And I realize that the people that we elect are just ordinary human mortal people who have to deal with some very, very important issues, particularly in our world and in our life today, where there are so many diverse opinions which are strong and passionate. And it's not easy, but I want to tell you, I have enjoyed being in this meeting today and feeling the spirit that has been here and the exchange, the common, sweet, peaceful exchange between opposing people who are protecting their own rights and so on. And each one, you know, has right principles that they're defending. And it's a very difficult decision to make. And I appreciate it, and I felt the Spirit of the Lord with us today. And I just pray that everyone that we elect to represent us can make these important decisions that are in the right way. And with the help of inspiration, we can come to agreements with these decisions. They're not easy, and everybody doesn't get happy, but a decision must be made for the benefit of all. And I just want to express my deep appreciation to you for the service that you render, and I have brought a little gift for you. You know, we don't appreciate these people who sit in the refiner's fire all the time and take all this. Carrie, love you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you and the service you render. And would you see the back end of this, please?
For those of you who can't see this, it's a book called The Miracle of America, Birth of a Nation. And I'm going to put this in the commission office, so that in the waiting area, so that people can have the opportunity to look at that. So thank you, Verda. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Verda.